Hey everybody, this is WobblyWallaby. Today I'm going to discuss 10 factors that I look for when determining whether a class is good or not in Ragnarok Mobile. I'll include some examples from various classes to show you some of these ideal factors. In this video, I'll focus on DPS for PvE as I'm working towards a better criteria when evaluating classes for honest reviews and tier lists. I focus on PvE, but many of these factors do apply to PvP as well. I'm curious what factors you think are important, and this is our code giveaway. I have 10 C, 5 global, and 5 EU codes to give away. In the comment section say what factors do you think are important for DPS classes. Please include your Discord ID and which server you play on, such as C, global, or EU. Winners will get codes June 8th, 2024. Based on your feedback, I can add more factors and adjust the current ones in this video. Next, one way to more accurately assign a rank for a tier list is to clearly define the criteria and factors. When a class meets several ideal factors, then it helps justify the tier. The weighting does have some personal preference, but at least you can choose what matches your style. I had some complaints that some classes have good DPS, but may not be able to solo instances. Fenrir is an example where I was overly critical about this. He has insane DPS, but without a tank you die quite easily, so I didn't enjoy it at the time. However, for those that have a tank or faith pray from a saint, you have the potential to even out DPS Ronin or Rathgricy. I personally put survivability high on my list over DPS because I like to solo carry, but that's not true for everyone else. If we evaluate all of Fenrir's factors, it can be shown that it is an excellent class. For this video, I'll cover a few classes as I work out the factors and the details. I also wanted to see other people's opinions before covering every class in a future video. The first factor is damage frequency. In instances like Museum or Lost Isles, there is a damage cap on bosses, so you can't one-shot bosses unlike Thanatos Tower. Therefore, high damage frequency is ideal. So ideal is the low skill cooldown between 1 to 2 seconds, damage over time, continuous damage, or auto attack, which is typically 480% attack speed. Here's 3 ideal examples. First is Ronin's Light Slash that has a 1.5 skill cooldown and does damage over time for 3 seconds. Next is Rathgricy's Blade of Order, which has a 1.2 second skill cooldown and hits every 0.5 seconds. Next is Genos' Rechargeable Incendiary Gun, which continuously deals damage every 0.3 seconds. Next is Bad, which his primary DPS skills are hard to spam or has setup. And 2 examples of these are Skybreaking Dragon Fist from Dragon Fist and Esma from Soulbinder. These are high damaging skills, but both have setup and a longer skill cooldown, so these are not ideal for legend runs, but can be great for boss hunting. Factor number 2 is burst damage. Bursting down a boss is great for boss hunting or instances like Oracle Dungeon, where bosses have no damage cap per hit. Whenever I carry Oracle Dungeon, I must take down Lord of House of Cards or King Clown quickly, or his debuffs will make the run very painful. So for ideal, it's having high damage skill for one-shotting bosses. Examples include Saitama's Enforcement of Justice, Heinrich's Fire Strike, and Lightbringer's Pioneer, all which are popular in boss hunting. Next is good, which is short-term burst. If you need a sudden burst of damage, some examples include Rathgricy's Spirit Summoning, Apocalypse Universal Star Shard, and Fenrir's Moon Shadow Barb. These aren't one-shot skills, but multiple high damage hits in a short duration. Next is bad, which is no burst. An example is Stellar Hunter, who lacks burst and relies on continuous damage. That's why I never really like using Stellar Hunter in boss hunting. It can be very hard to get the last hit. Next, factor 3 is survivability. You can't deal damage if you're dead. Survivability is incredibly important to keep your damage going, and especially important if you want to solo content. However, even if you lack survivability, if you're in a party, then it's less of an issue. That means classes like Stellar Hunter, Fenrir, or Apocalypse, which are considered glass cannons, can dish out a ton of DPS with a tank or faith pray from a saint. For ideal, anti-fatal, self-res, or damage immunity are great. And examples include Rathgricy's Divine Wing Armor, which I think is the best survivability skill in the game, since it's continuous and you don't need to time it. Then there's Novice Guardian's Returning Ruin, which is nice because of the auto-res, and Rune Master in Ronin's Last Stand, which gives 8 seconds of immunity. For good, this is heavy damage reduction or a chance to miss. Some examples include Thor's Storm Barrier. Its passive also makes incoming damage wind, so you can counter it more easily. Ancient Artifact user's Optic Camouflage, which has an 80% chance to not take damage, and Heinrich's Glimpse, which has heavy damage reduction. For bad, relies on others for survivability. That includes glass cannons like Apocalypse, Style Hunter, and Fenrir. Factor 4 is damage scalability. Some classes have insane sources of damage, which contributes to an unfair amount of damage. Scaling well allows your classes to get stronger and stronger over time, whether it be through Adventure Handbook deposits or rerolling ruins. For free-to-play or semi-free-to-play players, I think this is one of the most important factors when choosing a class. For ideal, ones include MDef Switch, use both magic attack and physical attack, or scales from many skills with Ruin support. Some examples include Ruin Master and Ronin Sink or Swim for MDef Switch, which I think is the most busted in the game. Rathgricy's Blade Up Order, which uses both physical and magic attack, or Novice Guardian's Card Tornado, which has lots of ruins to support its damage and scales off card attack, which also has a lot of support. Next, for less ideal, it has limited support or doesn't scale well. Now, all skills do have some support, whether it be through ruins, but it's hard to differentiate between good or bad, so I just said less ideal. I think Arcane Master skills are like that. Many of the 4th drop skills scale poorly, which makes this damage very underwhelming when people attempt the skill rotation build. Now the auto attack build scales better, but that's more for PvP. Next, for Factor 5 is hitting critical stats. To hit the ideal 70% penetration or magic penetration, 50% skill damage, 50% auto attack damage, and 200% ignore defense in Legend Museum or Isles, some classes help you immensely. So for ideal, it has a significant advantage such as 20% increase or more in physical or magic penetration, skill damage, or auto attack damage, or it has a way to ignore physical or magic defense. Examples include Style Hunter's Unlimited Stars for 30% physical and magic penetration, Rathgricy's Valkyrie for 30% skill damage, and Fenrir's Frost Moon Arrow for 30% auto attack damage increase. For ignore physical or magic defense, examples include Novice Guardian's Ruthless/Ruin 3rd line, which completely ignores defense. Next, Heinrich's White Star Core Hero passive can achieve 100% crit with dual wielding, 7/7 level, and full stack of charge, and then you can completely ignore physical defense. Then there's Ancient Artifact User. At level 4, both physical and ignore magic defense can be added together, which makes it easy for her to hit 200% ignore magic defense. Next is bad, where it's limited support to attain critical stats. Next, Factor 6 is convertible damage. Being able to double damage bosses is huge when you have the elemental advantage. Therefore, classes that can convert their attacks have a huge advantage over those that cannot. So for ideal, you have skills that are convertible with skills or items. There are many skills that can be converted, but some examples of skills that convert and provide great bonuses are Warm Wind from Apocalypse and Soulbinder, which is most notably able to convert to Ghost, which is extremely rare, Four Souls from Yamada, or Sacred Retribution from Rathgricy. Next for bad, these are skills that are stuck to an element. For example, Hela's Fatal Dream being stuck to poison, Novice Guardian's Card Tornado being stuck to wind, and Lightbringer's Machine Revolution being stuck to neutral. Next, Factor 7 is range. Personally, being short range is difficult. You often get hit by AoE and it's harder to hit and run. I prefer the flexibility to hit far away as needed. For ideal, 7 meter range or higher. An example is Ronin's 9 meter range for Slash Light, which is out of range of many annoying bosses' AoE. Next for good is 4 to 6 meter range. An example is the 5 meter range for Card Tornado. Next is bad, which is the 1 to 3 meter range. These are melee ranges like Apocalypse, who has a 2.5 meter range for auto attack. Next for Factor 8 is useful skills for party. Even if you can't deal a lot of damage, if a DPS can have good party buffs, then you can at least be useful for your party. You'll be less likely to be kicked out even if you underperform in damage. So for ideal, you have a critical party buff or enemy debuff. An example of these are debuffs that are popular in the White Star Airship meta. First is Exhort from the Saint for dark converting the target. Next is Yamada's Flowing Shadow Heart for reducing the target's damage reduction, and Heinrich's Bright Mirror for reducing the target's elemental damage reduction by 30%. Next is good. It has skills that help a party or debuff enemies. Some examples include Lightbringer, Spirit Whisperer, and Solar skills. These classes have good party buffs and debuffs, but they aren't critical for instances like White Star Airship. Next is bad. they have limited party skills, and for example, Stealth Hunter really can't help out a party much. Next for Factor 9 is Area of Effect. AoE is key for dealing with mobs in Weister Airship, Oracle Dungeon, and Echoing Corridor. Being able to hit many targets consistently in a large area is a very nice bonus. For Ideal is a large AoE which is 3 meters or greater or has a long linear path. Examples include Genos' rechargeable incendiary gun, Rathgricy's Blade of Order, or Rune Master's Magic Dragon Breath. All of these are spammable AoEs. Next for Bad are small AoEs, which is less than 3 meters. Although many classes have some sort of AoE, this is an AoE that can actually do damage, and you don't need to wait too long to use it. Stealth Hunters technically can hit multiple targets, but I wouldn't rely on it to effectively clear mobs compared to other classes. Finally, Factor 10 is Attainability. Some classes aren't available anymore, which is unfortunate. Sometimes if the class is paid, it also gives you a good indication whether it's actually good or not. Fortunately, there are plenty of powerful classes that can potentially outperform paid classes like Rathgricy, Heinrich, Fenrir, Rune Master, Apocalypse, and more. So ideally, it is attainable through the job change voucher, and the other is requires BCC. Next, the weight depends on preferences. Personally, my focus is on carrying Legend Museum, Lost Isles, and Thanatos Tower, as well as Pohnpei Secret Realm, Oracle Dungeon, and Weister Airship. As a result, I need to use busted classes like Ronin and Rathgricy to achieve this, many which score ideally in a majority of the factors here. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Here's a video that I would recommend, and if you want more tier lists to choose a class, check out this playlist over here.